Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Louis. My first message, I guess, we've got to be way over there. It's a bit unusual circumstances, but I hope everybody and their families are all safe and well. And a big welcome to the Romanian Business Services Forum and Awards 2020. Mirella, Magda, Christina, congratulations on putting this together. You're very brave. And thank you all. I guess, I don't know if this is a forum or maybe a bit of a therapy session for us all, just to be able to get out and stretch our legs and get some fresh air. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And it's really obviously at it's not even the crossroads. We haven't even got to the crossroads in business, but the future is about keeping the core activities and operations, but also evolve into more specific areas such as strategy, differentiation, health and safety, of course, and more complex and even profound aspects of businesses. So what we're going to do, we're going to kick off in a moment with my esteemed panel behind me. Sorry, I have my back to you, ladies and gentlemen. My esteemed panel behind me. We're going to sort of dig deep on that. Now, when the agenda was probably formed before COVID came along, we would have had a very different conversation probably from the one we're going to have today. So really value your expertise and some advice, I guess, is what we're all looking for. We'd like to thank the people supporting today. So our diamond partner, VPRO, thank you very much indeed. Gold partners, PwC, ADP, Colliers International, Societe Generale European Business Services, thank you. Our partners are SCC, Endava, C1, Wave, Case, I think that's correct, Valoris and Majorel. And with the support of ANIS, Cluj IT, the BRCC, and finally our media partners, oh my God, Financial Intelligence, Economistral Romania Durabilă, I think, Club Economic, FabLab, Yash, and PIN Magazine. So can we have a little round of applause for all of our supporters here today? Thank you. Thank you very, very much. As I said, we're going to, you're being fed already, and it's very unusual. Thank you, Mirella, because normally when I'm doing these things, I'm talking up on the stage while everybody's enjoying their food. So I've had a little bit of food, and we're going to do the debate. And then afterwards, we'll take a little break, and then we'll get into the awards gala later on after 6 o'clock this evening. So let's, without further ado, and I'm just going to change my my page there, improvisation, make sure I get your job titles correct. So from my left, an old friend, George Didoiu, who's the Director for Tenant Services, Office Agency, Colliers International, Romania. George, a big welcome. You can give him a little round of applause. And Denise, I never get your name correctly, but Denise Panaite, Casu, you've added the Casu in there as well, who's PwC's Academy Leader in Romania. Thank you, Denise. And then moving on, oh, Matthew's being attacked by VPRO. Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's yeah. There could be a message there, a hidden message. So, talking about VPRO, we have Vivek Bakshi, the General Manager for VPRO Technologies. Vivek, good to see you again, my friend. And finally, under attack already, you wait till the questions, is Mathieu Pasqueur, the CEO of Societe Generale European Business Services. So big warm welcome to you all. Matthew, before somebody comes in and attacks you again, I'm going to start off with you. Basically what we're going to touch on, ladies and gentlemen, is a few subjects. We're going to really kick off with the subject I think is eating away at us in terms of what COVID-19, how it's affected our businesses, and about our workforce and the trust and benevolence of our people. So we're going to sort of touch on that, and we're going to go into a little bit about leadership. You know, I've already been challenged on this as well. You know, has leadership changed from giving empowerment, which is the trendy thing to do? Do leaders now have to step forward a little bit more and really show some old traditional old-fashioned leadership, and that's something we'll debate with the team. And then we'll talk about building bridges. You know, we're looking at new synergies and creating effective partnerships vertically, horizontally, etc., not just within organizations, but maybe as collective as we are from the business services industry, actually find that competitors are working together in synergy for the better of all companies. And then we're getting into learning. Obviously, the kids are home from school. Trainings, learnings have been sort of put on ice or very on Zoom or however we're managing to do that. Is that something going forward that we need to touch on? And then finally about resilience. Really, I guess to finish off is getting the advice on how we go forward and what is that kind of resilience that we need. So, Matthew, to you, my friend, really going back to the first subject about trust. You know, organizational strategy in adapting workplaces and protecting workers. It's a big subject, Matthew, and I guess we don't know, do we? Where are we going with this, and what's your thoughts on this?
Good afternoon, first of all, to everyone, and very, very happy to be there to reconnect with the entire community and friends. I guess the new normal will be a little bit about this. It's cool, it's sunny, it's outside, it's really great. I don't know how we're going to do this in November, but we'll figure out. About the trust, and more importantly, before and to generate the trust, how did we take care about the people? And that was our primary goal. The health of our employees was really what drove us into all decisions that we took up until now. And very early in the crisis, at the beginning of the crisis, it was decided that we want at any price to send very quickly all our people back home, which ended up into the first months out of 2,600 people having only 1,400 working from home and 1,200 not being able to connect because no laptops, because applications not being whitelisted by our internal risk. So all those things that a French company is supposed to do, because we were before very adverse to the work from home. So we had to go very quickly into this culture of work from home, accepting on 3 months a loss of 37,000 man days of productivity because people could not work, and that was very okay. Then we, I would say, moved very quickly into buying laptops, distributing laptops, whitelisting applications, and within a month and a few days, I would say, everybody, 2,600 people, could work from home 100%. So that was, for us, the first and most important thing to do.
And with that, are you, let's fast forward, let's say it's July 2021.
That's another, and before 2021, we are in this period of transition where the country deconfines slowly. So what are we doing? So we are discussing with Vivek now. Some companies, and most of the companies in these industries will keep people at home until September, until December, whatever policy. We chose also to open our offices and even to offer our people to come one day per week at the office. We may effectively come back to this and decide to do otherwise and come back to confinement in case. But most importantly, what we are thinking about is what will be the new normal, and in which environment our people will feel good to work in, and at the end, what is the real impact that has into our organization. And the first impact that we see and the first thoughts that we will be putting will be on real estate. And I'm looking at George because I'm really eager to understand also from friends here what are the thoughts, and also from experts in the market, what are the thoughts around what will happen next. Because if we go in a new normal with 2 days, systematic 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, maybe 5 days a week, what do you need in terms of space at the end?
Okay. Well, I can let you know that George has quit his job. He's actually got himself a job and working in a bar, just being proactive. But George, we'll come to that subject. But I want to stay on this thing about the people as well, because I guess it's about information and data, and I guess as we're 3 months into it, a lot of data now is coming in, and the scenario of working from home, especially for a young person, I think in our industry there's a predominantly young average age. The thought of working from home initially was this sense of freedom and the spring lamb jumping through the field, and this will be great. Fast forward 3 months, is it a different picture now?
Well, I would say hello and good afternoon, everyone. I would say yes and no. It's very personal from demographic to demographic, but for the most part, I think it's very hard for me, and I work with office spaces. It's very hard for me to imagine a future where the office market is what it is today. Because once you give people that sense of flexibility, and I'm not even talking about COVID or stuff like that. I'm only talking about this was a very, very bad occurrence worldwide. They just forced us all to work under certain conditions. The work from home obviously being the first and foremost one of them. Now, what that happened was that people found out that they don't have to spend necessarily, and this is a fact going forward, 8 hours in an office. By the way, the statistics show that even if they were in an office, out of the 8 hours, they were being productive for maximum 3 or something like that. I'm not saying that's across industries. I'm not saying that's across industries. No, definitely. I think something's gonna fall on me. But what I'm saying is they are now finding out they can do, in most cases, a high quality job at home. And I think the office in the future will be, this is my firm belief, will be, and I'm going to come back to what the surveys show, but I think the office in the future will be a place of culture. So you're not going to be using the same square meters you are today, for sure, but you will be using the space you will be using, whether it's 30%, 50 or 70% of what you have today, is going to be much more infused with the company's culture for socializing, for interactions, either among themselves or with clients. But I think the work from home and actually working agile and working flexible is definitely here to stay. So there may be some denial for now, but it's very hard to imagine a future where the flexible component is not part of that work environment. Now, to come back to your question, the surveys actually show that people who like to work from home are actually people who don't have any, I would say, social obligations, because they have the most flexibility within the house as well, right? And the one that find it most challenging across all age groups are the ones who have to share their space with kids or spouses or roommates or stuff like that, because that can kind of cut into their efficiency for the work.
Okay, Denisa, you were nodding frantically away there. You know, some of the surveys that have been done have maybe been talking to people that George described, that working from home is okay because I can go and escape into a spare room or an office or whatever. But then George is describing, when we look at the workforce within the business services, probably don't have that pleasure. What are you feeling out there? You're on.
No.
Okay.
Oh dear.
I need a new microphone now. Okay. So we've done several studies, but we've also had various community meetings within the firm. And one of the most active community was a parenting community, where parents were sharing their challenges. And actually this community formed itself especially because we were surveying around, among our employees to see who is finding it more challenging during this time to work from home. And I can support what Giorgio was saying, that this was the group that was having the most challenges in terms of being effective, in terms of handling all the pressure, in terms of keeping healthy and making sure they are also there with their family and kind of distinguishing when it's work, when it's not. So if we're talking strictly in terms of maybe the populations that were most affected from our point of view, from the feedback that we have inside the firm, it was mainly this one and the very young people who were at the beginning of their career and who needed more guidance, and especially the ones who were living alone. So while there are challenges when you're sharing the space with someone and everyone is dealing with stress in a different way, when you are alone, it can be much more daunting.
Okay.
So later on we can share some of the
absolutely.
practices.
Thanks, Anita. Vivek, come to you on that. George mentioned about the offices will be a place of culture. Denise is touching very much on the emotional side and the benevolence, the care of our people as well. Is that how you see it evolving? But how are you going to balance that with getting your business done?
So I'll speak a bit about what all of them said. First, about trust. Work from home is going to demand higher levels of trust, not lower levels, and a higher level of empathy from our leaders, from our managers. What we have seen, so similar to what Societe Generale did, except we were, I think, more agile. Maybe we didn't wait for the laptops. We picked up the desktops and sent them home. So work didn't suffer. We didn't even suffer one day of loss of productivity. In fact, what we saw over the past 3-4 months, so we were able to, in Europe, we were able to get all our workforce home within 1 week. So it took 5 working days, 6 maybe. Globally, in a workforce of about 200,000, we took maybe 20 days. But 95% of our workforce globally works from home today. And this is across industries, we have 1,100 clients or so. And we actually noticed an increase of productivity. We've noticed an increase of customer satisfaction through NPS scores, etc. We've seen an increase of number of productive hours, what you were saying. Yeah? So much so that we've had to actually go back and tell people that work from home or work from anywhere doesn't mean work 24/7, because, like Denisa was saying, it's difficult to define boundaries. When does work start? When does it stop? Everything is online, so we've actually found people working longer, over weekends, all the time. So we actually had to tell people, take leave now. Of course, a lot of that messaging comes back with your company's trying to save money, but it's not that. It's about your mental health, because if you don't disconnect, if you don't step away, it's actually detrimental to your both your productivity as well as your eventual performance on the customer. That's one. Second, as far as empathy is concerned, I'm a parent. I love working from home. I didn't find it at all. Maybe my example is not accurate, because I have more space at home. I can go to the yard and work, etc. But people living in a studio or a small apartment will have challenges. Yes, for sure. So I'm not 100% in agreement with parents find it difficult. I think parents need to adopt. Or adapt.
Freudian.
So what we have found, and we made it with every customer, we set expectations with every customer that you will hear children noises in the back. In fact, at the beginning of every customer meeting, we've even told them that you'll find children noises or dogs barking, and it's perfectly fine because you are working from home and that's your place of residence. It's not your place of business. And customers reacted positively because they're also working from home. So it's not we're not unique there. So that's the second part. So you have to be a bit more empathetic. Okay. You have to understand that everybody has challenges working from home. Okay. You have to trust more because you are trusting employees to do that job and not work 3 hours a day, but work but also not work 24 hours a day, because unfortunately some managers, some leaders expect that.
Okay, okay. I'm going to stay with you actually, Vivek. Oh, go on.
One more point I'd like to make. So Corona being what it is, or COVID-19 being what it is, I think there's a huge opportunity here, especially so typically in the old days, we saw employment getting created in large cities, tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, where you find people migrating to these cities from smaller towns to find work. Yeah? So, which does what? Which leaves those. So today, if you drive around Romania, you'll find abandoned villages, and you see where have the people gone? Yeah? Because the local industry doesn't exist anymore. This is an opportunity to reverse that, because working from home actually is working from anywhere. There is no reason why a person who's working for you in Bucharest cannot work for you from Maramuresh, for example.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you change your business model to kind of take advantage of that? I think it'll do a lot of good for business.
Okay.
It will do bad for real estate, but maybe real estate needs to also change.
But George is going to work in a bar, so it doesn't matter. Just stay with you quickly. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Matthew, just to talk about how jobs have changed, how the roles have changed or changing, etc. But Vivek, just on that, and by the way, anybody who'd like to come in and ask a question, just raise your hand and we'll find you. But based on that, I guess some things are very much like fashion, aren't they? That something comes in, it's fashionable, everybody wants to do it, and it kind of peaks, and then people sort of start to drift away. If that does happen, how do you stand as an organisation with all the investment that you put into people working from home? What if those people at the end of the day, in 3 or 4 months' time, say, I've had enough now, I want to come back to the office? Are we able to do that as organisations? I'll come to you in a moment, Georgia.
So we, halfway through the crisis, we actually ran a survey within our employees, and now we're doing it globally as well. The idea is to redesign an operating model. If you ask me, and we're not there yet. I mean, we've got the data. Our employees in Romania, when we asked them, and this includes youngsters who are staying home, young couples with kids who stay in apartments, we asked them, what would you prefer? Would you prefer coming to office? Would you prefer coming to office 100% of the time, 50% of the time, 25% of the time? Most people actually came back, and our response largely was, people would like to come to office, but not more than 2-3 days a week. You know, it's not going to go back to 5 days.
Okay. George, very quickly, and then I'll come to Matthew on that.
That's my point exactly. The office is not going anywhere as an institution, right? You're still going to use it. So here's the main difference between what happened in the last 3 or 4 months and what's going to happen. People did not have the option to go into the office. I mean, sure, legally they did, but nobody really wanted to go because of the safety reasons and stuff like that. Once this whole madness with COVID is going to be over, you're going to have the option to go into the office, and that's a huge game changer. So you're still going to be work from home if you choose to, but you can go 1 day per week or 2 days per week. But in terms of real estate, for example, if everybody in your workforce only goes to the office 2 days a week, that's a 60% decrease in the headcount. That's on a daily basis in average in an office space. Correct. So that's my point. And I think so instead of rows of offices within your computer, people working there, you're still going to have a portion of that, but more so you're going to have spaces who are going to look on a smaller scale like what we have here. Okay. Right, so just where people can interact, and we call them agora, right, and brainstorm and meet clients and meet amongst themselves. So that's the part about the culture and branding. The office is not going to disappear, sure. But it's very hard to argue today. Well, I'm talking to my clients from the US and stuff like that. At the earliest, they're planning to come in Q4, Q1 next year back to the office with this situation.
Some companies have decided otherwise, though. Twitter, for example, they said they'll only work from home.
Oh,
no more offices.
There you go. So,
thank you, George. Matthew, let's talk about this evolution, the changing ways in which people are working from home, working in the office. Surely this is going to have a dynamic on the roles that people play in the office. What are your plans for this? Is there going to be a fundamental change, or we adjust? How are you looking at this? And by that, I will move on to the stage because I think I'm driving the cameraman crazy.
No, you're absolutely right. There will be some changes. What what will not change is the role of the analyst, the operator, the people really programming and so on. Their basic role will not change, and what we expect from them will not drastically change. What will change is their interaction with their clients or their partners, with their managers, their team members. That will change, but the role in itself will not change. There are some roles still that will have to reinvent themselves. The managers, but they have started to adjust to this new normal of remote management. And now we can think about what is the new normal for an HR BP being totally disconnected physically from the teams. In our specific case, what is the new posture of a project manager who has to make sure a transition from France to Romania or India is going well with zero travel? Because obviously we experimented zero travel, so our partners are expecting us to continue to do this, to transfer activities and to continue to offshore without any travel. Without any travel means having the ability to train the people to their new processes remotely. So you imagine that you recruit someone. So I'm recruiting you, right? You are 25, obviously, right?
IQ.
Yeah. And we explain to you, we have an onboarding that will be very quick, and after we'll tell you, if you want, you can stay 3 days work from home. But for 3 months, we will train you. How do we do this? So it means that we will have to reinvent totally the role of trainer, the way we train the people. So all these roles that are around supporting the business will have undoubtedly to support a change in the way they operate.
Okay, well done with the Harley Davidson going down Calle Victoria then. Denise, let's sort of blend into what Matthew just said, because he mentioned the word manager 3 or 4 times there, I think. And before our friend COVID-19, we were talking about this trendy new way of the word manager would start to dissolve and we'd be coaches and mentors but going back to leadership, where are we now on leadership? Because we were talking about empowerment and more collaboration with our people and dissolving this kind of traditional manager role. Fast forward to today, we're saying now we need strong leadership, and being a leader now is tougher than ever before. How are we going to manage this?
Well, the coaching part as the mindset and as an approach among leaders is actually more important than ever. And like Vivek was talking about empathy, this is increasingly important, not to judge what the root causes for maybe being, for performing under certain expectations at times is, and actually jumping in to really see what the source is and how you can support people. So one of the first actions that we had, and we joined forces internally, HR and the Academy, to really redesign the way we do the training in a way that is keeping people engaged and they really absorb what is happening. But at the same time, we were mainly focused on the leadership part, because this way we could really have an impact in the whole organization. So basically our main focus was initially on that part, and then we had some complementary initiatives addressing the whole staff in terms of resilience, in terms of mindfulness, in terms of striking the right energy balance. So there were, we had some practices called work well, be well in advance, and we had some a habit bank and all kinds of recommendations. But now we actually started having weekly sessions with everyone who wanted to join, focused on resilience and mindfulness in dealing with anxiety and so on. So these were from the internal coaching department. And in terms of the training, there was a lot of focus on training and also on experience sharing and learning from each other. So we didn't assume we knew everything. We took some of the best practices, but then again, we were never pretended that it's the only way, what we were teaching in the classes. So we actually developed and enriched all of the training sessions with the experiences coming from everyone.
And it's interesting what you're saying now. And George, just continuing on this subject of leadership, like the general of an army, they're looking for, for loyalty and all the good things. Otherwise, they all die.
Yeah.
Looking at an organisation and listening to Denise, Vivek, and Matthew, where this flexibility and maybe the engagement and the corporate branding, whatever you want to call it, is that going to be in jeopardy, and therefore people and their loyalty to a company can be threatened by this?
I firmly believe the opposite.
I'm glad you do.
So I really believe that the more you're going to force people, especially capable people, of working within a very strict and non-flexible set of rules, whether it's their time or their destination or where they have to be. The more you use "you have to be," the more you use this phrase with people, the less they're going to like it. And the more, I'm obviously, and coming back to Vivek's earlier remark about empathy and trust, I think that those are going to be key elements going forward, to the point that they're going to start being part of the basic education. So I think this is also a revolution in terms of the education system coming, right? We learn a lot of stuff, no disrespect to the education system currently, but we learn a lot of stuff we never apply in real life when you think about, right? I mean, I was horrible at geography, chemistry, physics, all that. Some stuff you apply, but what I'm saying is you can have a system where it's all basics, and then teach kids about empathy, teach them about resilience, teach them about communication, about social intelligence, about emotional intelligence. That's the future. This is what we use every day, right? None of us in this setting would be able to use if we didn't know basic communication or empathy, right? If you said something to me and I just turned away and left, like I usually do when I see you, right? I mean, that doesn't work. So my point is, I firmly believe that with this new normal, people are going to be more loyal to the companies that allows them this kind of flexibility. I don't know what the future is going to look like in terms of, what the office space is going to be 100% like. I have a hunch, but I think that if you entrust capable people, and I do mean capable and competent people, and you allow them to express themselves and to work within a certain amount of flexibility, you're going to have an increase in loyalty. You're going to have an increase in productivity. Mm-hmm. So it's the other way around. Because, what we're talking about here is micromanaging, right? Just keeping your hands on the steering wheel, making sure the car goes into the right direction. But if we look at the studies, psychologically, mindset, therapy, and coaching, and so they all say the same thing: give people mastery and autonomy, right? Let them decide how they do their work, and they're going to do a better job. And I believe Viva was just saying that productivity increased. Why would productivity increase? Think about it. In the #1 pandemic in the last 100 years, where people are usually scared, because you have to take that into account, right? When you do your job, you're scared, you're distressed psychologically, and still you do a better job. Why? So I think these are relevant questions for all of us to ask going forward.
Denise, I guess George is touching on leadership sort of moving to the influence of leadership rather than the old traditional way of leadership. And I know we're both students of emotional intelligence right now. What are your thoughts on this? Is this how it's evolving?
Yes, and I was really impressed, and it was not just my opinion. It was generally a very, very positive reaction among our employees when from the beginning of the whole quarantine period, we had monthly town halls with the top leadership where they were really open and they were vulnerable and they were sharing their personal challenges. In terms of people wanting to know, okay, so what is going to happen? Are jobs going to be lost? Are we going to be paid less, work less, and so on? What everyone really appreciated was, we didn't have all the answers, and all of the leaders were transparent about this. And what was always like a leitmotif, and it was always constant in all of that communication, were the values that we all stand for. Mm-hmm. And where we were putting our employees' safety at the top, where any measures that we take are there to secure their employment and to make sure that we have a healthy business. And that any of those measures that people were maybe scared of would be a super last resort. And I think the fact that there was a monthly communication where you could openly ask okay, so I'm afraid of this. What is going to happen? Every feedback that we received was incorporated, whether people didn't have the right setup at home and they said, you know, my back aches, I don't have a setup, a proper setup, they sent the chairs at home from the office. Or so the infrastructure went beyond having the laptops and all the connectivity and everything. If I wanted an extra camera to do a proper broadcast for training and so on, I received everything the very next day.
Okay. Vivek, George, keep with that microphone down. Vivek, Matthew, I'm going to come to both of you here because as parts of international organizations, I know you all are, a part of an international organization, you're having to make decisions, strategic decisions for your business going forward, and I'm sure you have to present your 5-year business plan and all of those things. How do you manage that, as well as what in the past, when you were actually physically with people, getting the buy-in, the involvement, the engagement was a little bit easier? How are you, in terms of your strategy, going to really help that, cascade that through an organization when people are working from home? How do we do it? Nice bit of delegation.
I may start, and I think this question is a good transition with what we just said, because in a way, what we said is trust first, and with this trust first, you give more ownership, you give more autonomy to the people. They feel more valued in their job, so they are maybe more ready to listen to what the leaders of the companies will come with. However, I strongly believe that we are still in a cycle of the crisis where people are just facing fear. The level of fear right now while they are at home is lower than at the beginning of the crisis. But how is it that we action our role of leaders to bring them from this state of fear to the state of hope? Because ultimately, with the economical crisis, let's not forget, but let's think that the sanitary crisis is leading us into an economical crisis, extremely deep crisis, and will lead us to really take extremely tough decisions going forward. Still, we will increase the level of fear, adding the sanitary one to the economical one. But as leaders, how do we mobilize all the chain of management effectively? And that's the challenge, to be able to carry the new strategy forward. And to, in a way, to transform this strategy that may not be always very sexy, seen from employee side. How do we make them buy into it and go together? That will be the challenge. And I have no necessary answer to this because it's coming now.
Yeah. I was hoping you were going to answer your own question there. Vivek, through the experiences through these three months or so, is it going to be about getting more and more engagement, more empowerment, but also probably starting to listen more as leaders and getting the good ideas that were there anyway, but it wasn't the platform to share them? Maybe, is that happening?
So I don't pretend to be an expert. I don't think any one of us is. But yes, we've seen higher levels of empowerment across the board, across the organization, across geographies. And where we've seen middle managers getting empowered more, we've seen better results. So it comes back to the original point that you need to trust. You need to trust your people to do their jobs. You need to trust your people to do it right by your organization. And that needs to be your core value. So,
I've got this concern where the sun is coming between the trees now. I get sunburn, I get moonburn, let alone sunburn. So I'm going to blame Mirella if I get sunburnt tomorrow. She's putting her thumb up. Thanks. Thanks very much. George, I'm going to come to you and Denise here. Just changing angle a little bit. I talk about building bridges, and it's really about new synergies, creating effective partnerships, vertical, horizontally, within organizations. So, we always talk about the traditional departmental sort of segregation, if you like. So sales and accounts hate each other, and that correlation is sometimes got a bit of a wall between it. What's happening what's the experiences through this, and how do you see it going forward on an internal situation, do you see a positive thing in terms of those synergies and sharing of ideas and concepts and strategies?
Well, I'm afraid I do not have a clear-cut black and white answer to this one, but I would say this: whatever misunderstanding we might have had in a situation where we felt all very safe and where the future was kind of predictable, I think difficult times do tend, moreover, or more so than not, to bring people together. So I'm hoping this is what happens. I mean, my feeling when I'm seeing, I've said this times and times again, we have such a cool group of people in Colliers, but after this period, whenever we get to see each other, right, we're not a lot in the office, maybe 10, 15 people at one time, but you know, it's such a joy, because it was one of those things that you took for granted. And surprise, surprise, sometimes you're happy to see even people you don't particularly like, just because, you know, you feel sometimes there's a shared sense of community. You know, you're not my favorite guy in the world right now, but, you know, we're both of us here doing this thing together, sort of, right? So I'm expecting the level of conflict and stuff like that to decrease more so, and you know, going forward. So I think we have the premises for a better collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just looked at my notes, George, and it said that George wasn't going to answer that question. So well done. I didn't read my notes. Denise, let's talk about this. We talk about anxiety. We touch on the unknown and everything else. Is that manifesting into greater collaboration, and those departmental walls are coming down, and people are, as George says, are meeting people in the elevator they never spoke to? Now it's, you know, there's not the hugs or kisses, but there's that different synergy between people.
Well, what we've seen was actually much more collaboration. For example, I've been involved in the upskilling of the academy leaders on the region. So we actually, one of the first initiatives that we had, I mean, the first focus points initially were, okay, let's make sure that the existing projects are continuing well, and we're focusing our efforts there. And then we partner up with the internal HR, but we also very much focused on how we are redefining the academies and how we bring ourselves up to that level to be authentic and to really walk the talk. And if beforehand we would meet like once a year, now we started meeting every week 2 times. So we were having these Scrum meetings, very short, very focused. We identified the main areas of relevance for us as a business and for us as people. So we started having much more effective meetings. And the level of collaboration that we had was amazing. And this was not just the case for the academies. This was actually shared along in the region, even in terms of the partnership at regional level, even when we're talking about financial results. Everything was being thought about as a wider community, so as a one firm at a regional level. And while some countries performed better, we have the benefit of being a compliance business, so the volume didn't really drop. It was just seeing how our clients can cope with sharing the information that we needed for the audit engagement and so on. But otherwise, the business was doing well. In other countries, it was not doing so well, but everyone was supporting each other. So this was really, wow, super fantastic. And the amount of learning that we've had, all of us, has been enormous. Exhausting at some point, but it's definitely been enormous. Wow. So collaboration all the way up.
It's interesting, isn't it? Vivek, we'll come to you. You're going to, unfortunately, have to leave us in a short time. But before you leave us, we're not going to let you get away without saying a final word. Just carrying on from what Denise said, which was very emotional. It was about the interaction between people, and I keep using the word benevolence and the care, and which is filtering, is cross-departmental love, if I can call it that. On a technical basis, I guess, in terms of digitalization, this newfound collaboration and friendship and respect is, I guess, is accelerating the digitalization within companies as well, isn't it? They're able to get things done much quicker.
So you know, people find newer ways of working, and I'll give you an example of from early days of COVID, how one team adapted, and that's that might answer some of this. One supervisor, so we were asking people how they're doing and how they're connecting to their teams, etc. So one supervisor came out with which we made into a best practice, saying that, you know, what she did, and this is a supervisor here in Romania, is that she would open a conference bridge early in the morning at 9 o'clock, and the bridge would be on for the entire day, and people would log in, and of course they would have a stand-up meeting when people logged in. Then people went about their business, but the bridge was on. They would log in. Some folks were logging in to have coffee together, physically separated, or lunch together, or you know, or otherwise connecting, your water cooler talks or what have you. But they found a way to connect. They found a way to connect to everyone, and I think it worked brilliantly. And I thought that was such a good practice. We told all the other geographies, and in fact it was a very popular idea, and it's an example of how people find new ways of connecting, of adapting to a situation. Yeah. I think we, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. We will invent other ways. We don't know what. But for sure, this is not. It's here to stay, at least for the moment. And one last thing, and I need to step away for 10 minutes, like I said. What I think after this blows over, and it's not really going to blow over till the vaccine comes, but even after, what I expect to see is possibly what we call a hybrid model. It's not going to be work from home, it's not going to be work from office, but maybe somewhere in between, right? So what that state is, or what that model is something we don't know yet.
Okay.
And just briefly, I think it's going to be very different from company to company.
For
so
sure.
You're going to have companies who are going to be 90% work from the office, 10% from home, and vice versa.
But I'll tell you one thing. One thing that this entire pandemic has done, we had customers where we couldn't even talk about working from home. Banks, insurance companies,
security
work from
reasons,
home, GDPR, no way in hell, you know. We'll slap you with a 30 million penalty. The pandemic happened, work carried on, there were no breaches, there was no impact on SLAs. In fact, performance improved. What it did do is show some of these naysayers that yes, it is possible. Yes, there is a different way of working. I think what we need to do is close the loop and go back to regulation. And so we need to make some regulatory changes to see how this can get implemented successfully and not just in an emergency.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, it's a nice positive note, and you touched personally there. I think about, you know, the connections with our families. For those of us who got families overseas, I think it's been a big lesson on our relationships with our families. Has kind of filtered into our realization of our relationships with our colleagues as well. I've actually attended 2 Zoom bachelor parties over the last month, and I've never got so drunk in all of my life on Zoom. So it was pretty good stuff. So are you going to?
I'm going to step away. I'll come back if you're still on.
No, if you leave, you ain't coming back.
Okay.
No, you're welcome.
Up to you.
You're very welcome. Please come back. Please come back. Vivek, thank you very much. Give me a little round of applause.
Talking about the digitalization, I just wanted to share how proud I am that actually since February until June, half of our employees in Romania and on a regional level went through data analytics online academies, digital awareness programs. So we're talking over 12 hours of specific training for that. And what was really impressive is that these communities that started forming were also about, oh, we can apply this that way. So it wasn't just, okay, so everybody goes to this training now, and everybody needs to know what Alteryx is and what data visualization works like and so on. There were these ad hoc communities. We didn't even advise them to do that, and they came up with a lot of solutions. So I think the amount of innovation that we saw and the mindset shifts that have been happening because you had to, but because you also, some people had more time. So I think the level of digitalization, if provided with the opportunity, really increased among a lot of the people in our company.
It's a very positive note, and I think, Matthew, we're going to stay on this positive note, if I may. Slightly change direction with it, because it's got me thinking about the effects of COVID-19. We've agreed it's sort of brought companies together, individual departments together. It's made us closer to our families in many ways, especially our remote members of our family. I'm going to come to you about supply chain. I'm really sort of thinking about this because we're talking about the collaboration and synergies between organizations. Do you see yourselves, even with your competitors, starting to have this sort of cooperative in supply chain and really looking at buying products predominantly from a local market, I mean a regional market, rather than before where we're buying them from South America, China, etc., and the challenges and the concerns that that's raising? Do you see an involvement on supply chain and that changing and maybe supporting more Romanian-made products in the instance as well?
The question is interesting, but maybe not for me. Why? Because even before COVID-19, Société Générale is known to really promote sustainable development in the way we finance the business and in the way we operate our business. Hence, before we have in our sourcing policy something that is called really sustainable sourcing, which part of it is local sourcing. And in a way, for us, COVID will not necessarily change anything into the approach. However, maybe unlinked to your question, what COVID will change on a bigger picture is the way everybody will look at the way they source their services. And I'm sure you all followed this debate about are we dependent on products that are made out of China, or some medicines that are done in India, and so on and so forth. And in our case, we are working extremely closely with our colleagues in India.
Your friend on the holiday.
Yeah, no, he knows me. He knows when I'm talking. And basically, we started to hear this from France also, saying, don't we have a dependency on all those processes that are in India? And it's something that we try to convert into something different, saying, don't we have a dependency between the geography, whatever it is, and the way the process is sourced? So in other words, do we effectively have a problem of resilience because we have a concentration of processing in one country only for one process? Hence, how do we use better India, be it India, Romania and France, in order to have this spread of businesses across all the geographies to optimize it?
Okay, it's a little bit of a French cultural thing as well. The buy French products. I lived in France for 3 years, and I think if I had an Audi, and everybody in my village hated me, so I've literally had to change it to a French car. So there was that culture. But what you're saying is, and I'm glad I asked you the question because you were able to say, hey, we're already doing that, already there. Denisa, is that something that should be sort of cascading into other companies as well? Is this a good model? Or what is the model? Or will we just keep the supply chain as it is and not really be concerned about it?
I think the business operating model has so many variables, so it's difficult to say a concrete yes or no. What I can speak of is how our firm operates. So we've been having centers of excellence beforehand. So we don't have everything concentrated in only one territory. If I'm talking academy level, each academy in every territory has a specific area of focus, and this was actually capitalized much more during this period. But apart from that, we have shared service centers for our business in different parts of the region. So we don't have that dependency in one particular area, which gives us a lot of freedom to move. and it's generally sharing. And during this period, actually, this was a model that went a level up. So we started working more agile, which was beforehand, it was a concept, it was a mindset, but it was only specific teams that were working agile and who knew what agile is actually about. And when we started adopting this methodology, we saw that we could be so much more fast, and also that we could have a much better quality of the end product. I think what is essential is identifying what are the key areas of competence that various sides of the business can respond to, and then seeing how that fits and how that can be integrated for the benefit of the entire organization, not just on a territory level.
George?
I mean, when it comes to supply chains and stuff, I think I'm vastly underqualified to answer that question.
You probably give a better answer then.
So all I can say is, the only thing I can obviously conceive right now is that that's actually the part of the population that has probably had it the hardest in the most recent months, because they were the ones who had to keep things going. We had the luxury of working from home. It's very hard to produce a laptop or even any sort of IT infrastructure or whatever you are physically producing working from home. So I think they, alongside doctors and other medical professionals, I think those are the people who deserve our respect during these times.
Okay, but from a real estate perspective, I'll save you here. From a real estate perspective, on the industrial real estate, are you seeing not a surge, but a continuing growth in that, because they're now adapting or adopting smaller warehousing, not so much the massive just-in-time that we used to have?
100%. 100%. So everything that's regarding to e-commerce is basically growing. Everybody is adapting their business model towards that. So logistics, all models of logistics, newer models, and all hybrid models in between are also growing. So our colleagues from the industrial side of things are happy, are okay.
I'm going to move there, because if I don't, I'm going to be like a zebra tomorrow. So I'm going to move over here by you, my friend, or by my best friend. You are one of my friends, but this is my best friend, Denisa. Let's talk about learning and development. We've touched on it already anyway, and I guess it's as a trainer myself, there's nothing more that I love than having an audience that I could parade around and interact with. And now we're kind of doing things on Zoom. Are we, or are you, sort of waiting in anticipation for the time when we get back to the classroom, or is it changing for organizations?
Well, initially, a lot of people were reluctant, and they preferred to say, okay, maybe we can postpone, let's see what is going to happen, maybe we can still meet face-to-face. And then, obviously, as people started accepting that this is here to stay for a while, then they accepted and they moved to online. Which is why we actually used that time to make sure that we really up our game in terms of online delivery. It's not just, okay, so now we don't present this way, we do it online. It's a completely different approach in terms of dynamic, in terms of checking in with people, in terms of the technology that you're using. So this was initially our main focus. What we've seen is, both internally and among our clients, people are very, very interested to learn. So apart from the specific needs that we had internally, when we launched the leading remote teams internally, we had to set up new sessions and new sessions. We did not expect to have so many people sign up and show up. Previously, however well you would market these programs internally, you would maybe expect officially to have 16 people, but you would end up with 10. Probably. Now, it was always a full class. It was rarely one or two people who needed to jump out at times. In terms of what was coming to us from the market, there were people who were interested in professional qualifications. Probably in the sense of, okay, I am worried, I don't know what will happen. Either I need to do my job much better, or I need to consolidate my CV so that I'm still employable in the new future. So there was really a very high volume in that sense. So both internally and externally. And because this is very much about leadership as well, what I wanted to say is that the projects that we've had mainly outside, so with our clients, we're in the area of team coaching. And some of the main topics that surfaced both internally and from our clients were how you have difficult conversations during this time. Besides the fact that it's remote, that you don't do it face to face and you don't pick up all of the nonverbal cues and so on, you know, people felt guilty about saying, you know, you're not performing according to expectations. And they were afraid, they were assuming a lot. So this has been quite a frequent topic. And among the top leadership teams that we worked with several board member teams. And they were very focused on, okay, whatever happens, we need to put the cards on the table. We need to have some frank discussions and to see exactly what is working and what is not, because we need to be really super strong as a team. So there's no room for us to quarrel. There's no room for us to assume you're being too arrogant, you're not paying enough attention, and so on. So there was a lot about this. And what we suggested and people actually really absorbed was this striking the right energy balance. Because we said, okay, so how can you build resilience among your people in your teams if you don't focus on your own resilience? And that was from watching their calendars and seeing how they insert some mini recovery sessions to building some really helpful practices. Because if you compare athletes with professionals, recovery for an athlete is part of their job, is what is expected. Before a big moment, they rest more. They focus much more on what they eat, on all of the healthy practices, which in business has been a luxury. And this was actually, it went even further on under lockdown initially. So people started to really hit a point where they said, okay, I can no longer sustain a high level of performance. So I need to build some healthy practices into how I do it. So the teams that we worked with, we worked how they do it for themselves and how they cascade that and support it within their teams.
Okay, another question for you, and I'm going to ask Matthew to answer the same question as well, is we were hearing, before, I keep saying before COVID-19, we were hearing about, you know, jobs of the future, that jobs today won't be in existence in 3 years' time. There was lots of different sort of statements going on. And I guess they say that a good time to learn is when things are quiet. You know, it's a good opportunity, like me and you have been learning over the last few weeks. But is that going to trigger, or should it trigger people to take this opportunity to look at their careers and maybe make a dramatic, like George going to work in the bar? Should we be taking this opportunity, or should we be encouraging this opportunity for people to maybe take a career change in their lives? Matthew, we'll ask Matthew to.
No, definitely, you're right. We were focusing on this before COVID. Now it's even more obvious. We were talking about digitalization. If you take the ID card of AG European Business Services, is 700 people in IT, and all the rest of the 2,600 on operating processes and so on. It's obvious that when we look at the nature of the jobs that are performed there, and the need for digitalization that is coming even faster than before, we have the responsibility to really bring the people to their new career path. And I say new because the paradigms have changed. Hence, we have to adjust also the value proposition that we have for our employees globally. And then we have to really ourselves be extremely innovative on what are the new jobs of tomorrow, and how do we make this value proposition to our staff. What kind of new jobs do they have? And you're right, we invest a lot in a way into the training, and I agree with Denisa. Currently our colleagues are really welcoming any of those initiatives.
It's interesting living in Romania for 11 years. In Britain, most people don't follow their academic study. They go off, including myself. Whereas Romania, people tend to follow their academic study in their careers. So maybe this is an opportunity And Denisa, is this an opportunity where businesses should be looking for that talent that somebody has? Maybe they've been an accountant for 5 years, but actually they've got great communication skills or something else, and we need to help them to develop into another role. Should we be doing that, or should we just purely leaving it to people to decide themselves?
I think it's not our decision whether we should do it. It's actually becoming very obvious. In our experience, and again, I'm referring both internally and externally, most of the client requests that we've had for development programs, they were always positioned in a way that this should help them perform better in their current job, but it should also support them in developing their career. So this never in one client meeting did it miss. It was always present. Sooner or later, we didn't have to ask it. It was always in the brief. And internally, because we were fortunate enough to have all the technology to make things happen very easily in terms of collaboration platforms and everything, a lot of people discovered new jobs, and they took up some additional roles in their existing job. And I wouldn't be surprised if actually some of those roles would develop into new jobs per se. So there were people, maybe from some of the junior ones, who had more time, and everybody was thinking, since we had, for example, we had weekly managers meeting in the assurance part, and at some point there was a mention, okay, we have 30 juniors who are doing nothing. What do we do? How can we help them? So it was okay, we encouraged them to take some days off, we encouraged them to do all the learning, but how can we actually use them productively so that they learn something and they also help the business? So a good part of them learn how to develop e-learns and to collect information from the subject matter experts and to put it there. Some other ones learn how to be producers for online live training sessions, so that the trainer stays focused on what they are delivering and the producer is handling all the technical part. So these are just some examples, but I think because we started with that trust initially and we gave all these opportunities for development, people were feeling they were comfortable to come up with ideas. They were not afraid that if they say something it might be considered stupid, and a lot of really good things came out of that, which they turned into practice, and they actually created a lot of new jobs.
So it's a lot of don't just focus on improving what a person does, but about personal development. Yeah, George.
What I think, and this is a very dear subject for me, what I think is going to happen, I obviously do not have the crystal ball, but I predict that companies are going to become their own little universities. I think companies will hire people for their potential, will not immediately ask them to provide value, but instead take 3 or 6 months of paying them to train them in various aspects, and each company is going to have a highly tailored educational system to their needs. So you're going to hire on a whole different skill set than you do today. That's number one. Number two, I think they are going to, more and more companies are going to repurpose whatever workforce they have for the future. Age is not going to be a relevant factor that much anymore, as long as the candidate proves himself capable of being adaptable to new processes and whatnot. And I'm kind of excited about it because it's never been done. Yeah. Think about it. I mean, if everybody right now looked at your diploma, diplomas don't really matter anymore. Really, I'm sorry, they just don't. It matters what you can do, and I'm talking about universities. I'm not talking about real life. We're just going through a
course to gain a diploma.
I'm talking about universities. I'm talking about having a diploma that says, you know where the Northern Sea is. You're able to talk about the chemistry, table of elements or stuff like that. That's not going to be that relevant in the future. When you look, you have. I try to stay very connected with the online environment, educational environment. It's unbelievable. You have 18-year-old teaching classes on Udemy or Skillshare, or 18-year-olds, and they're teaching classes, and they have super rankings. So that's the value of the future.
Interesting. Yeah. Denisa.
I just wanted to touch on something that Georgia mentioned, which is about purpose. I think that one of the things that really helped us very much go have a healthy approach through this period was the fact that, like I was saying in the beginning, it was all about confirming the values that we go by and our purpose as an organization. Our mission is to solve important problems and to build trust in society. And whenever we were talking about performance, it was not so much about the number of tasks and the number of hours you put in. It was always, okay, what is the purpose? Why am I doing this? And somehow starting from, okay, so the interns or the juniors who had the time, the purpose was, okay, so how can you contribute with what you know, or what can you learn that will help you in the future and the company? And whether it was how you service a client, whether it was how you service another line of service in the company, it was always the purpose, not exactly the how. And then people came up with the how, and they thought, okay, so if the purpose is to make this happen like that, maybe we can use this tool, or maybe we can have this approach. So I think that fueled a lot of creativity.
Interesting. You're going to tell me you're already doing this, aren't you? No. But Matthew, just taking what George said about the way that we recruit people, maybe we don't even want to look at the CV, that we just want to recruit the person, the individual, more than the diploma and experiences. Is it evolving a little bit that way?
We had, I would say again, I'm disconnecting it from the COVID. I'm more connecting it to the generation, where there should be a connection of the values between the company and the individual for the recruitment, more than, I agree, the curricula, definitely. And that is happening. Yeah.
Okay.
Just very, very shortly, obviously there are some highly specialized jobs. If you need to speak perfect French, you're not going to be able to say, I don't speak French, but I have high values. You need to speak French, right? Yeah. But I'm talking like a whole, as an organization, you're going to start looking more and more in people. If you can train them within 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, and then keep them for 10, 15, 20 years, and within those 10, 15, 20 years, move them throughout different careers, different jobs, some vastly different between them, I think that's a gain.
Wonderful. Parlez-vous français?
A little bit.
We're gonna wrap up. What I'd like from all of you, and Matthew, I'm going to ambush you first, is really talking about finishing on leadership, about ingenuity, creativity, USPs, whatever phrase. How do we stay one step ahead of the competition? And I say about talking for Romania here, how do we keep Romania one step ahead? What is your one bit of advice from this whole conversation, or something different you'd like to share with everybody?
Now, the question is interesting, because the question is not so much about ingenuity, but about how do we keep Romania ahead. To be honest, I don't know how we keep Romania ahead. We are in a context where Romania can be ahead without doing anything. Why? Because benefiting, again, coming back to the economical context, I strongly believe that Eastern Central Europe has really a card to play, linked to the fact that there is a little bit of uncertainty on the resilience with Asian countries. And we saw, I think it's De Longhier lately, who relocated in northern Romania all their production from China of coffee machines. Wow. And that will happen more and more. So I think Romania in itself, I would say if the political leaders are taking it the right way, there will be a natural thing happening to make Romania really some sort of leader in some areas in the region. Okay. Now, when it comes to us, how are we acting in order to help this happening is I think quite interesting question is in a way. How do we reinvent ourselves in the new models? And as leaders, I think we need to reflect on this and see how we can make our organizations more effective and how we can effectively bring them to the top position. And for this, and to take our example as a French company, and just to finish on a light note, French companies' decision-making process, something that is of a mystery. Basically, you can spend hours in a meeting room. If you are not a smoker or a coffee drinker, you will never be aware of the final decision. Huh? You have to be there. So what we learned during the crisis is that in a crisis mode, we have first to decide very fast. And we have to demonstrate this to our employees for them to trust us. Okay. And that is something that we kept afterwards, being able to be much faster in our decision-making process, not fearing anymore that anyone will come and say, you took a wrong decision, and us as managers not ruminating on decisions that we have taken that are maybe not the right one because we have taken them fast. No, we are much more agile now. Okay. And I think the agility in management, capability to change directions and capability to set up new strategies extremely quickly will make our companies much competitive.
Perfect. Vive la France. Thank you for that. I moved over here. Now the sun has decided to reflect off a window onto me. I feel like I'm in a sniper's rifle sight.
By the way, I like your Vive la France. You know my cufflinks here. So yeah, it's Bastille Day, so it's French flag.
I thought it was Belgium. Sorry.
No, yeah, I will discuss that after.
George, we'll leave Denisa till last.
So I would say that, you know, the Romanian culture has some good and bad aspects to it. But throughout history, we've been put in the position to be able to and have to adapt actually quite a lot. So I think even the newer generation are very much attuned to that state of mind. So I think that you can easily transform what people were doing from 1 month to the other. And I think that we have this sort of innate intelligence and adaptability to be able to perform various jobs, right? So I guess that, strictly speaking, for Romania, that's kind of my hope going forward. However, I'm also expecting a lot of Romanians to work from Paris, Bahamas, New Zealand, Australia, for a Romanian company or for a company that's based in Bucharest, because, you know, that's coming. And they're going to come to the annual meeting of the company and, you know, tend and all that, like you are right now. So,
okay. Thanks, George. Denisa, finally.
Yeah, I actually very much agree with what Georgia is saying. I think that throughout this period, we've seen a lot of brilliant Romanian professionals who had left Romania, but who started coming back or contributing from a distance. And whether that is inventing a robot that can, I don't know, it doesn't come to me in English, that can clear can do the hygiene that you need in a hospital room, can do it in 10 minutes or in 30 minutes, which I think I just overheard at the radio yesterday. What I'm saying is that a lot of Romanians are contributing from abroad, and they are contributing even voluntarily without being paid, and some of them are reaching out because they want to have a contribution. Some of them came back, some of them are doing this from a distance. So I think it's an opportunity for us to attract the talented people who have left Romania because they wanted a different standard of living, a different environment for their kids, a different educational system, but who are still quite strongly attached to Romania. We can attract them to work, especially now that we are becoming increasingly more flexible with how we work together. So I think that's definitely an opportunity. Other than that, really, it's so dynamic. There's so much to discover and to see what surfaces.
Well, we started in an optimistic mood and we finished in an optimistic mood, and I think it's fair to say, and everybody in the audience, you know, you're part of this journey, and it feels like we're in safe hands. So, and later on we will be recognising some organisations who've really done exactly what Denise is talking about. So we're going to get fed, I think, now, going to have a main course, and then at 6 o'clock we'll be starting the awards ceremony. But George, Denisa, Matthew, thank you so much. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an interesting topic. And again, thank you to the Diplomat team for putting this event together. And we'll see you all at 6 o'clock for the award ceremony. Thank you. Thank you.